Hi there, everyone. So welcome. We're going to do here a first video, level 3, material level 3. I'm going to focus here on command words. It's very important if you are preparing for the level 3 at the moment, do not forget how to write the words or the phrases or the answers for the open questions on the level 3 exam. In 2023, you're going to have now a mix of alternative questions and open questions on both parts of the exam. A little bit of a change, because before it used to be open questions first, then you take a break, and then you go for the alternative session of the level 3 exam. It's not being done like that anymore, okay? However, the way you're supposed to answer the open questions are still the same. Have not changed any of the rules how to answer those questions. And that's the purpose of the video here today. So I'm going to show to you the command words. I'm going to give an example, and I'm going to explain to you how to answer that in a quick, easy, elegant way, putting everything that's expected from the question without wasting much of a time. Okay? You have to remember that the questions on the level 3 exam will have time. You're going to have X number of minutes to finish each question, each open question. In each minute, it represents 1 point. So more or less, if the question has 3 minutes to be answered, it will be 3 points of that question. Each item set on the level 3 will have about 12 points, 12 minutes to do it. So in that case, you want to maximize the points. You want to maximize the points you get for the answer. So it's important to get some key elements, some key words on each of those answers. All right? So let's see. I'm going to start with the first command word. I'm going to do this in alphabetic order. Okay? And I'm going to let you know right now that I have not included all the command words here. I'm just going to focus on the ones that I found that are important to know, some key words in the process to answer that command word. And the ones that I have not included, an example I left for the end, put a list, and I'm going to explain to you why I do not believe that's so important for you to structure some kind of answers for those command words that I have not included here on the sequence that you're going to see now. All right, so let's do it. First one, it's analyze. So take a look, analyze. So you're going to need to analyze something in the exam. Well, you're going to have to answer accordingly to what is expected from you as an analysis, right? What is an analysis that you need to do? So look at this. The definition, the explanation of command word analyze is break down a complex issue into its component parts and examine each part separately. Well, that's the definition. That doesn't tell us much. That doesn't tell us how to answer the question, right? But an example will do the job. So my advice to you is take a look at an example, keep an example in mind for each command word, a simple example, and some of the keywords that are important to include in that command word when you answer that question. Those are the ones I highlighted in green here for you on the explanation here in this example. So let's see an example. Analyze the factors that influence the valuation of a company stock. That's the question, right? Analyze. Now, how are you going to answer? So there's several ways to answer this question. However, you need to include some points that gives the person that's grading your exam the sense that you are analyzing. You're not describing, because if you start describing something here, you miss the points. The question wants you to analyze, not describe. So how do you answer a analyze question? So take a look. The valuation of a company stock depends on. Keep that word in mind. Depends on. Because now I'm doing an analysis. Well, it's depending on. So depending on what? This, and that. That's an analysis. So if you include this depends on, is giving you the reader inclination, is driving the reader to see, oh, that's an analysis. Right? Depends on. Let's see. Right? And then you put here several factors, or depending on the following factors, etc. In this case, put financial performance, industry trends, macroeconomic conditions, investor sentiment. But now imagine this question here is analyze something else. That's fine. You can start the question with the depends on. right? The valuation of company, or to answer this question, it depends on such, such, and such, right? That's already drives the reader to an analysis, okay? You already prepare the mind of the person that's grading your exam, this question here, for an analysis. That's what you want to do here, right from the batch, right from the beginning of your answer. All right. So financial, now you see, you put depends on such, such, and such, and then you're going to explain a little bit. You're going to analyze each one of those factors. So now is the point that you need to see, okay, hold on. How many minutes do I have to answer this question? 3 minutes. Then don't put 5 factors. Depends on this, 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 and that, because you're going to waste time, right? It's a 3-minute question. And if it's an analyze, which usually analyze, I'm predicting here, you'd get more time to do it, because an analyze is different than describe. Describe is just a description. Analyze is a little bit more thoughtful. I would say probably like 5 points for the question. Well, if it's a 5 to 6 point, remember 12 points is the maximum for one item set. If you get a question with 6 points, it's a half, right? So this means, oh, I have to write something here thoughtful. I have to answer here at least a few paragraphs, or at least a couple sentences, or more than a 3-point question, right? That's how you want to frame the answers according to the time that you have to answer each question, right? So don't try to answer a 2-minute question with a very complicated, complex answer, because, oh, that one I know a lot about this topic, so I'm going to put there a lot, as much as I can possibly imagine. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help you, because there is a criteria to grade those answers, right? And those criteria include, let's say, if the question is asking you, name one factor that supports the point above, and you name 5, they're going to disconsider the 4, and they're just going to take the look at the first one. And I tell you more, it's very probable that if the first factor is wrong, and the second, third, and fourth are correct, you're going to miss the entire question, because the question was giving me 1, and I'm going to look at the first one that you put it there, and if it's wrong, I'm going to give you an X and move on, okay? So again, think about that, right, when you answer those questions. So now that I said depends on those factors, I will explain those factors. So the first factors, for example, and you explain what happened. So I use such. So in this case, financial performance metrics such, see, you're giving knowledge, such as earnings per share, P ratios, and return on the equity. Provide a measure. So look at this point, and you give such, an example for this point is this one, and this point provides this. So look at the words here. I put depends on factors. Those factors such, this, and this, what do they do? Oh, they provide something. In this case, they provide a measure for profitability and growth, right? What about the other factor? Oh, the other factor is industry trends. So explain it to me, because you're doing an analysis, but, I actually shouldn't say the word explain, right? I said analyze that, right? So industry trends such, again, look at the word such again. Such, because you're saying a group, and then you identify an element of the group to make more precise your analysis, right? You're not doing a vague thing. It's a little bit more precise. That's the concept of analyze, right? So look at the words here. Depends on, name what it depends on, listed, and explain each one with this, put a such to give an example, right? And then tell what each one does, right? And in the end, you finish with a finally. Put a finally. Right? Put a final, because since it's an analysis, you need the conclusion, finally, or in conclusion, or, taking in consideration all of the above, right? We can infer that, right? Those are the keywords that you need. So analyze, right? Make sure you put an analysis. Make sure that sounds like an analysis. Another thing you can do, make sure you know the differentiation of all those command words, as I'm going to show it to you as we progress here in the video. Okay, so there you go. That's the example for you, friends, of analyze. Take those words and change the question and try to see if your answer for a different question follow these guidelines, right? If it sounds like an analysis. Very well. Let's go to the second command word on my list here. Compare, right? So compare, be careful, and compare and contrast and describe. When you compare things, my friends, do not describe things. Don't get the direction of description, because you're gonna go and you're not gonna get the points. You need to go to the comparison. So there are keywords in the answer that require the command word compare. Take a look at the explanation of compare. Identify similarities, all the keyword here, similarities, right? And differences. Similarities and differences because I'm comparing, right? Be careful because we're gonna see here contrast. So the word contrast is different than compare, huh, friends? So compare and contrast, right? So this, make sure that you really know that what you're doing. Am I comparing something or am I contrasting something? Because contrasting stress the differences. Compare, it's a little bit beyond that, right? So let's see here. We have identify similarities, differences of two or more terms, items, or concepts. Take a look on this example. Compare the financial performance of two companies in the same industry over the past 5 years. That's the command. Compare this. So look at that. Now I put an example a little bit more vague because we want to focus on the keywords. So let's see. Company A has what? Higher, lower, right? Because you're comparing, right? So focus on something to compare. Usually this question will show up in an exhibit, several characteristics of two situations, two companies, for example, and then you have to compare. So stress with what company A has better or higher than company B. That's a good start. So look at that. Company A has something higher, whatever it is that you look on that table, than company B over the past 5 years, right? Then it's a comparison, right? Put a however. However is a mandatory word on compare. Okay, so if you compare, you're going to include that however. Put that however there, right? That's also going to drive, not going to make the reader, whoever is correcting your answer, okay, it's a however. That's however is a comparison, right? Because I'm pointing up, I'm stressing differences and similarities. However is an important word to be there. Company B has what? Better than company A, right? And then indicating what? Indicating, for example, the company A is more liquid than company B or company A, but the other company has a more efficiency, right? So you can compare several things. And again, look at how many minutes you have to answer the question. Do you have 3 minutes? Well, then if you have 3 minutes, it has to be quick. So just couple compares. You have 5 minutes, well, then take a little bit longer. So let's see here. We have compare. A company A has something higher than B, but B has something better than A. Overall, A has this, B has that, but in the end, it appears that. So look at the words that we have to kind of include in a compare. However, and what it is. Another one, in addition. That's a good word, in addition. Because that's a comparison. So memorize that, put that in your pocket, in addition. Indicating that overall appears to be. Those are the words that I highlighted here for you. So what would I do here is, okay, if it's a compare command word in the exam, then I want to make sure that there's a however in my answer, that there is some kind of overall, and there is like an appear that this is better than that, because that's a comparison, okay? All right. Third one on the list, contrast, right? As I had mentioned to you, contrast, well, highlight the differences. So look at this, friends. If you want to do a compare, make sure that you put similarities as well. Okay, not only differences, but similarities. That's going to give you the feeling of comparison, because if you do not put similarities, it becomes a contrast, and then you're not answering the compare question. If you only use differences, pay attention on this, because that's important. If someone is grading your exam, someone most likely is going to have a rubric, right? What is a rubric? A rubric is, okay, if the command word is contrast, the answer should have this, and that, right? So it's kind of like give you a guideline how you're going to grade your exam, okay? I'm actually inferring that, because that's most likely how we do in universities to correct or grade exams of that level, right, with open answers. To be a fair mechanism, to be a fair event, we give rubrics, so everybody will use the same standards when grading those exams. So with that in mind, right? So make sure that when you contrast, you only point the differences. That's it. How many minutes there's this question? 3 minutes. Point up 2 or 3 difference max. 5 minutes, put in more. Okay, always pay attention on the number of minutes and how long your answer will be. All right, let's see an example here, friends. Contrast the features of 2 types of investment products available to retail investors. Well, could be any contrast, right? Well, that's why I put kind of like in blank the answer. Example. So let's see rates and ETFs, right? The real estate trust and the exchange trading funds. So they're both could be anything, stock and bonds, right? It could be here like float bonds in fixed rates, options. What you know, whatever is the problem is asking you to contrast, right? You can follow the same logic here. So look at that. This and that are, and then you stated what they are, okay? Then you compare, you contrast. Put however. However is that road that makes the reader to think, okay, there is some kind of analysis going on here. Remember, analysis is much bigger than contrast and compare. Okay, so an analysis, like I mentioned before, would probably be a question with 6 minutes, right? It's an analysis question. A compare contrast should be inside an analysis question, right? But contrast is only point up the differences, right? So I'm going to state what they are, and then I said, however, and I'm going to point the differences now. Look at that. However, rates are what? Are this and that, or have this and that, while is important because I'm comparing, yeah? I'm contrasting, mean 2 elements. So I have to have the while. While would have in the compare answers as well. Okay? And obviously on the analysis. So those keywords for contrast and compare should be also on your analysis. Analysis requires compare and contrast as part of the answer. All right. So here I said real estate investment trusts are this, this, and this, or have this, this, and that, while ETFs have this, this, and that, which is different. So maybe I can say that real estate, I can talk about correlation with other assets. One has more correlation, less correlation. I can say that one is more liquid, the other one is less liquid. One was more expensive, the other one is less. One is more tax friendly, the other one is less. Again, demonstrate knowledge that you know how to contrast, but pay attention on the minutes that you have to answer this question as well. And put a finally, just put a finally, finally. It's always nice to put in an analysis, put a finally there. Not compare, put a finally. And a contrast as well, put a finally there. Finally, which one is better? Or both are equally good, depending on the situation. So, and then overall. Look at so the words that I think you should include on a contrast. You should state, point up the differences, and use in addition, while, finally, and overall. Always include an overall on analysis, compare, and contrast. Okay, overall, because it kind of concludes your answer. Okay, all right, next one, friends. Which one is next one? Describe. Describes can be tricky because descriptions could be long. Again, take a look on the number of minutes. Is that 6 minutes to answer, which will be the case of this question here? It's a long answer, right? So you need to describe. Don't put a line there. It's 6 minutes to answer and you just put a line. How can you expect to get 6 points for this? You can't. You will not. So make sure you put things there. Another thing that you can do is this. Put it, if you're not 100% sure on how to answer the question, right? Well, then make sure that if you know something, right, put it there. Because you will try to maximize the number of points you get in here. So if you don't know, you'd rather to write something that's aligned, even if it's a tangent to the point that you have to answer, maybe you can get some extra points that will help you in the grade at the end. So do not leave any question blanks unless if you don't have the time to do it. That's another story. All right, friends, so let's see here. A description, right? So describe the steps involved in portfolio management process. Wow, it's a long description. So you're going to have to take the piece of paper that you're going to get the scratch paper in the exam, kind of point some bullets there. By the way, you don't need to answer, and I do not recommend you to answer like that. I would recommend you to write in bullet formats. So all those points, no, they are this. This one has this, the other one has that. So you can do that in a bullet format, right? If you feel more comfortable writing that way, the person grading your exam is going to probably appreciate it, because it's much easier to read on the bullet format than read it on a essay format, which is the case that's written here. Okay, but if you're comfortable writing essays, if you can organize well your thoughts, like in paragraphs, go ahead, do that. The advantage of writing in bullets, not the bullet format, the points, is that you can organize kind of any way you want, and it doesn't have to have like some kind of sequence or grammar sequence that kind of, you know, could take a little longer when you are answering essay question that way, like on this format versus in the bullet format. In either format is fine as long as you actually answer the command word. So it's a description. Now, it would be nice to do a description in a essay format, right? It's hard to do a description in a recipe, a bullet format, but you know, again, it still can be done. So let's see. Let's describe. So what do we need? First of all, you need to start explaining kind of like a overall, like I give you like a open explanation, like start your point, your description. So what is? So define. So here on the description, pay attention. You're gonna have to include a define. So remember, define, which is coming, right? Or yeah, define. Actually, I have not included define here. It's one of the command words that kind of like, well, define is define, right? So just boom, define. My point is, if it's a define question, you're probably gonna get 3 minutes to answer. If it's a describe question, you're gonna get probably 6 minutes to answer, let's say, meaning define should be inside the describe. Think about it, right? If I'm describing, I have to define, I have to start with a definition, and then I start describing that. So that's what he did here. The portfolio management process involves several steps, because what is the question? Describe the steps. So define here, well, there are several steps, or there are 3 steps, or there are 7 steps, 6. If it was hypothesis test, right? Describe the steps involving hypothesis test, right? QM question, right? Level 1. Then you can say, well, there are 6 steps on the hypothesis test. The first one is to formulate the hypothesis. Well, here's the same idea. Several steps, including such, such, and such. So if you have to describe something in 5 minutes that has too many variables that could be included, don't do all the variables. Just select 3 or 4 and focus on those ones. That's your best bet here. Otherwise, you get vague on your answer, okay? So that's what he did here. We did several steps, including such, such, and such. Oh, I only have 4 minutes. Such and such and such. I have 6 minutes. Such, 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 and such. You see what I'm saying? So add, subtract the number of examples, the number of points that you want to describe and touch in your answer according to the number of minutes that you have to answer. Very important to manage those minutes, my friends, okay? All right. So now, describe each one of those, right? Because you describe it. So I name it right on my beginning of my answer. I say, okay, this requires the following, such, such, and such. Now, describe each one. Look how intelligent is the way to answer a describe question with a lot of information. You selected 3 or 4 points, and then you describe each one. When you describe each one, you describe in the process by describing each one of those steps. Okay? So that's the idea here. So state points involved in that description, describe each one of those steps, and then finally, right, you can do a conclusion. That's it. So the points above, although are not all the steps included, are the most important, and overall summarize the steps involved in the portfolio management process. Boom. You close your answer with a little touch, right? That will make good for the person that's grading to see, okay, now there's a conclusion here and I can see a description. It's always a good idea to, in quotations, to please your reader, right? Make it easier for the person that's grading your exam. All right? Description, be careful. Description are usually long answers. Next one is discuss. All right, discuss. Discuss. So, discuss. Let's see what are the important points. Let's see the explanation of the command word discuss. Examine the issue in detail and consider different viewpoints or arguments. Look at the keywords here, viewpoints or arguments. Present it, because you're discussing. If you're discussing, you have to present your point. So see, it goes a little bit further than describe. This is not describe, this is discuss, right? That one, we're going to have to present points of view, or viewpoints, arguments. But again, take a look on how many minutes do you have to discuss. Usually discuss is a longer answer as well. I would predict at least 4 points for a discuss question. So 4 points for a discuss question means you're going to have to include at least some interesting discussion points to be able to get the full points for that. So let's see. Was a little redundant. Discuss. You have to address what the question is asking you to get the full point. In a discuss, you're going to have to present at least 2 or 3 arguments, depending on how many minutes you have to answer this question. So let's see. The question is discuss advantage and advantage of something. In this case, was passive and active investments. Could be advantage or disadvantage of anything, right? Answer. State. This, now one of them is this. The other one is that. Boom, you stated, right? What they are. Now you're going to discuss, okay? Because you're going to have to present point of view. So make sure that you put something there that's good or bad, because you're going to have to present an argument for that, right? So for example, you're discussing advantage. Well, tell the advantage. Tell why this is an advantage. Then support your point. Tell why this is a disadvantage. Support your point. So let's see a quick question I used to ask when I was teaching economics a long time ago in my beginning of my university career, an academic. It was, give me a pro and a positive advantage and a disadvantage of a flexible exchange rate system and a fixed exchange rate system. That's level 1 question, right? But take a look on how many minutes you have to answer. I have 3 minutes. Well, then just do one of each. Do one pro and one con. State the pro, state the advantage, state the disadvantage, explain the advantage, explain, argue, finish the question. That's 3 points. Now, 5 points, then you're going to have to kind of argue a little bit more. Maybe you can give 2 advantage and 2 disadvantage. Are you following my points here? Look at the number of minutes and structure your answer accordingly. So you can make it. You deserve to get 5 points. That's how you should feel after answering that question. You look at the answer and say, okay, I deserve 5 points for this, right? But you know, if the question is 6 minutes and you just put a line there, you do not deserve 6 points for that answer. Simple as that, right? So discuss, presented points. So in this case here, we put it, one offer potential for higher return, but also higher fees. See, a good and a bad. High return, higher fees. While the other one, right? The other one, on the other hand, look at the keyword here. On the other hand, make sure you put included on the other hand on a discussion. Put it there. It's good. It's a good connector. On the other hand, right? Telling you okay, that something's coming. That's a discussion, right? Then we can use on the other hand for comparison. Sure, if you're comparing something, this is like that. On the other hand, this one is this one. You can use also on the other hand for contrast. Okay. So again, discussions will have definitions, will have compare, will have contrast inside the same answer. Analyze as well. Right? Now be careful when analyzing discussion. Analyze is just an analysis, kind of like you are a neutral party. You're not taking any sides. You're just analyzing. When you're discussing, you're taking a side. You're taking this is good, this is bad because of this and because of that. All right? That's a discuss. Next one, evaluate. Okay? Evaluate. Access and form an opinion. Look at the keyword here. It's opinion. Means in the end of your answer, make sure you state a point. Take a side. Put your face out there. Because you're evaluating. Right? In my opinion, this is good. In my opinion, this person does not deserve to pass the level 3 because those answers are not complete. You know, that's what your evaluator or the grader of your exam might think at each question that it's going through. Evaluate, access, and form an opinion. So 2 points here. I have to access, so I have to list something. And then when that list, I can form an opinion. So I'm going to list points and going to take those points, okay, because of this, my opinion is. Right? So let's see an example. Evaluate the impact of change in tax policy on the profitability of the company. Evaluate the impact of the change in tax policy. So impact of anything. Evaluate the impact of anything. Use this frame that answer in a way that you can answer any evaluate question. Any, right? So this is just an example. So take a look there. Based on this policy, because that's the question, what happened? The company tax rate will increase or decrease, right? Let's change that. Evaluate the impact of the change of the interest rate in a bond portfolio. So then you say, based on the increase in the interest rate and the duration of the portfolio. So you need to state something, right? And then said the effective tax rate will do that. The interest rate change will do that to the portfolio. Boom. Then throw a however there. However, the company could do something to mitigate that problem. So look at that. However, the company can reduce its tax liability by investing in R&D and throw to the expenses as much as R&D as possible. We're going to lower your tax base. Right? Don't put now, for example, I would say here, so can I put here change the method of the depreciation or change from LIFO to FIFO? Well, no, it's not a good answer because companies cannot be changing LIFO to FIFO every year, right? So be careful. Although your answer could be okay, yeah, if you change from LIFO to FIFO, we're going to have some changes on the expenses, cost of goods sold, etc. But that's not a good answer because, it's not feasible. So try to also consider things that are feasible, that can happen, right? So it's better to create more R&D expenses than change from LIFO to FIFO, right? To minimize, or FIFO to LIFO if you want to increase the costs, okay? So minimize your tax base. So be careful on the examples that you do. They're looking at that as well. I mean, remember, who is grading your exam? It's not an English professor, right? It's someone in the financial market, someone that understands this, right? I don't know if all the graders have to have the CFA charter. I don't think so. I don't think it's a requirement. But I can tell you, they know the answers, right? They might even get the answers, right? I kind of know how the process is, but I cannot tell you how it is. But, imagine, someone would have all the tools available to make sure that we'll do a proper grading on your answer. All right. So put there, based on this, that's what's going to happen. However, how can you mitigate that? Well, you can do this. Therefore, although the impact might be big, if the company takes the necessary precautions, they will not be too bad. Well, there you go. It's an evaluate. You're evaluating. That's what's going to happen. This is the impact. But if we do this, we mitigate the impact. I'm doing an evaluation. I'm doing an assessment of the situation. Okay? All right. You don't have the command word access, right? Because you become redundant in some of those command words that we have here. The next one, explain, friends. Be careful with explain. Explain is tricky. Because explain, I'm thinking I'm explaining something. Next thing I think I'm comparing. I think I'm explaining something. Next thing I see I'm defining. So be careful because if you need to make sure that you know what you answer. That's not defined. That's not, something else. It's explain. So look at this. Look at the keyword. Provide a clear and detailed explanation of a concept. Provide a clear and detailed explanation. Look at the keywords. Clear, detailed explanation. So how many minutes do you think you should get here? At least 4. Right? To do something that's detailed. If the keyword is detailed, expect to detail. Right? Expect to give details. Expect to answer in more than 2 lines. There you go. So let's see an example. Explain the concept of market efficiency. Level 1 question here. Well, levels 1, 2, and 3, right? more accesses as it is at level 1, market efficiency and its implication for investment management. Well, that's it. Explain. Explain anything. So how do you start? You start with the defining what you need to explain. I need to explain market efficiency, correct? Yes. So I'm gonna define market efficiency. Market efficiency is this. Then I explain what happened in a market efficiency. So in a market efficiency, this will happen, right? That's the scenario, right? And then I need to describe all three market efficiency, right? Because that's an explanation. You're not saying explain the semi-strong or explain the strong format. Explain in general. So then you have to do it. In an efficient market, that's what's going to happen. In a strong format, that's what's going to happen. And in a weak format, that's what's going to happen. So I'm explaining to you what's going to happen, right? I'm explaining to you. I'm not describing. I'm explaining. So be careful when we describe, we just state it as it is. But here I need to detail and explain. I just don't, it's not just the detail, we have to explain as well. So look at this. Efficient market, it is difficult to consistently outperform the market through active trading, although is the best strategy. Right? In an efficient market, right? Active trading is the best strategy, but it's also difficult. I'm not describing, right? I'm explaining what it is. Okay, look at the second one here. In a semi-strong format, passive investing is a better strategy than the either active or tech analysis. However, in the weak format, because of the past information reflect on the market, technical analysis outperforming strategy. My apologies for this little 2 typos over here. But there you go. That's an explanation. All right. Next one, friends. Interpret. Wow, interpret is deep. Huh? To explain the meaning or implications of something, to reach a conclusion about something by application of knowledge. Look at the red. By reaching a conclusion. If your interpretation doesn't have a conclusion in the end, you're not going to get full points. So make sure that you have, we may conclude that. Therefore, we can conclude that. Based on the facts stated above, the obvious conclusion will be, or the correct conclusion is, make sure that the word conclusion is present on your interpretation. Period. So let's see an example. Interpret the results of balance sheet and income statement. Easy question here. Vague, because there's a lot of things. Take a look in a number of minutes and structure your answer accordingly. So let's see. The balance sheet shows, because you're going to see something in front of you, you're going to have like a table and you're going to have to interpret the results, right? Could be a hedging, right? Could be in this case here, the results of financial statements presented on by the company. It could be any kind of interpretation, but interpretation requires data available to you. Right? Look, a very interesting question that I don't think is going to be on the exam 2023, but could be in the future level 3 exams. They could say interpret the results of this machine learning, gave it as an answer, right, for classification of data. That could be there one day. I can predict that question being there. Interpret the results. Then you're going to have like some kind of like a word cloud, a confusion matrix. Interpret the results of the confusion matrix. So now you're showing that you know how to read the confusion matrix, right? And how to answer a question that asks you to interpret the results, right? You want to be financial analyst with the CFA after your name, well, and you're gonna get a reputation, right? You're gonna have to show knowledge, right? You have to, besides professional ethics and professional competence, knowledge is part of that. You need to understand how to interpret results, but you need to know how to express yourself. Now, we know that most of our colleagues, CFA charter holders, including myself, are not English speakers as with the first language, right? Most of our colleagues do not actually speak English as first language. So obviously, your answers will be probably done on your native tongue. That's fine. But make sure that interpretation is interpretation. Discussion is a discussion. Explanations are explanations. Descriptions are descriptions. In any language, they should be done that way. Okay? Or at least they should, let me rephrase what I said, they should contain some elements. That's important. There you go. And most of us, independently of the first language we speak, we're going to have to do it one way or the other, one point in our career, with very few exceptions, write something in English, right? So that's exactly how is expected those answers to be if those are the command words that you're going to use. Back here. Interpret the results of the balance sheet and income statement. Hold on, let's see. I look in a balance sheet so I can see several things. So I can see, for example, if the balance sheet has liquidity, has efficiency, and has solvents. Look at that. I put 3 words on level 1 here on level 3 that will appeal to the reader. The reader say, look at that. This person remembered it's level 1. There's level 1 exam. Very good. Excellent. You know what I mean? That type of thing helps. Put it some knowledge, show a knowledge on your answer. Even if you kind of like go a little bit off tangent, or you don't go exactly to the point, throwing some extra knowledge there that are correct helps. I mean, I believe it does, right? I'm almost sure it does. All right. So balance sheet, according to the following ratios. So now I'm using ratios to support this point. So because I'm interpreting, right? In conjunction, now I have to talk about the other statement, which is the income statement. Then the profitability of the company is this much, as good, is high, low, it's being increasing, decreasing, as shown by such and such ratios. Boom. Therefore, according to the ratio analysis, we may conclude that. Boom. Finish your answer. Well, that's an interpretation. You included several connecting words that are typical of an interpretation. You state the results, you kind of explain where you get those results, and then you put a therefore, and you put a conclusion. That's an interpretation. All right, continuing here, almost in the end. Justify. Justify is provide a reasoning to support a claim or recommendation. Justification. That's actually not too bad to answer, in my opinion, right? So justify the selection of a particular investment strategy based on its historical performance and risk profile, right? So justify, right? So look at that. The selection of a passive investment strategy is justified based on what, right? Based on the fact that this market is semi-strong format, based on the fact that this is less expensive strategy, right? Put it there and justify. Justify. I would suggest this because of that. I suggest this because of that. You're suggesting and justify. Suggesting and justify. Put an in addition, suggest it again, justify again, and then therefore you stated with, well, based on that, that's why I selected those investments for the client, or that's why this is the best ones according to the data provided. Anyway, do a conclusion, because justification, analysis, interpretation, you're going to need to conclude. You're going to have to put a conclusion. That's going to add points in your answers. All right. Recommend is my last one. My last one here, recommend, suggests a course of action. Now you're not justifying, you're recommending. Now be careful, when you justify and you're recommending at the same time, you're missing time and missing points. Because if the question asks you to justify, do not recommend anything, right? If it's suggest, recommend, that's a different story, but justify is just justify. Take this because of that, the justification is this. Don't go any further. Don't go like, oh, in addition, I recommend you to do that, by the way. Well, why are you doing this? You're not getting points. You're wasting time, right? This is not a good strategy, right? So focus on the command word and exactly what the command word wants you to answer. All right. Recommend. Suggests a course of action or a solution based on an analysis. So imagine again, you have a statement, you have a data, and you have to recommend a course of action. So let's see. Recommend a strategy to reduce operational expenses of a company while maintaining profitability, right? Well, the company can reduce its operational expenses by, well, what do you do it? Right? Change the method of depreciation? Yeah, it's a good idea, but can you do that every year? No. So can you, now what you could do? You could, for example, hire outsourcing. Now start outsourcing things. Well, then maybe, right? Change the tax jurisdiction, right? Move to another state, move to another country, right? Something like that. Then explain why, because you're doing a recommendation, right? So I recommend you, the company, to do this in relation to that question. Why are you recommending that? Well, because this will blah, 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 blah. Put an in addition. An in addition adds, because look at that. It's more than 3 minutes to answer the question. Put an in addition. In addition is going to add elements on your answer. In addition. On top of that, on the other hand, always those connectors are very useful for questions that you need to expand the answer. Okay? When you need to expand something, you add more examples. You add more connectors. You add more explanation or, description, whatever is the case for that answer. So in this case, I put in addition to add a little bit more. But if it's only a 3-minute question, then I would say, look, the company could do this. By doing that, the company will minimize the taxes by this way, although the profitability is not going to be lower. We maintain the high profitability. Boom, 3 points. You cannot afford to do more than that. If it's a 5-point question, then you do an in addition. 6 points in addition, and also add 3. Oh, you got the idea, I hope, right? So look at that. This will, in addition, it should do that to reduce waste and increase efficiency. These measures, therefore, will, etc., etc. That's my recommendation. Well, that's it. Okay. All right. Now, friends, I'm going to show to you the words, command words that I have not addressed on the video today, because I found that are unnecessary for you to spend too much time structuring the answers for those particular command words. For example, calculate, define, demonstrate, determine, estimate, formulate, and identify. Why not? Well, calculate is a calculation. You're going to have to use a formula and find the answer and put the answer on the answer sheet. That's it. I predicted, and this is a prediction, as an, I would say, educated prediction, but it's not an affirmation, that the calculation, most of them will show up on the alternative session, not much on the open session, because you don't get, it's difficult to give you partial points for calculations. When I took the exam a while ago, they would give partial points if you put the right formula, but you made a mistake here solving, you still could get some points for the answer. But now it's going to be difficult in a computer-based system. I'm predicting that very few calculation questions on the open questions for you. Define. Well, define is simple. It's a definition. I need to define something, so you just define, okay? Demonstrate, it's part of, let's talk about the numerical command words. Numerical command words. Calculate, demonstrate, determine, and formulate. Those are mathematical command words, because most likely they could show up in a number question. Calculate something using a formula. Demonstrate that this equal to that. Demonstrate that this portfolio is immunized, right? Demonstrate that the PBO it's in the asset, the planned assets are correctly immunized. The cash flow is managed. Demonstrate, right? So you show his numbers. Determine. Determine usually is like calculate. Determine something. Find something, right? Estimate. It's a number question. Estimate. And an estimation might have some probability involved here. Formulate. Formulate. So just could be a formulate a thesis, formulate a formula. Formulate a formula kind of, I found difficult. But formulate a thesis about something. And identify. Identify, you just go to the text and locate, identify. Oh, that's here. Identify. Identify in the text above, on this, on the little exhibit above, identify availability bias. Identify a cognitive error. So you just go to the text, locate there. Oh, there's a cognitive error here, right? This client is exhibiting mental accounting. So that's a cognitive error. Let me fix it. So, so I put it there. I identify here. That's identification. That's very simple. You just locate and bring it back. So those command words, I don't think you need to kind of like spend too much time practicing. So that's why I put that in that category. All right. That's it, my friends. All right. That concludes our revision or presentation, if you say, about the command words. I hope this video was useful for you. Anyone can get in touch with me. I've been preparing candidates for the CFA exam for a while now. very comfortable with the material, all 3 levels. This will be that's my contribution for those that are taking the exam here, the last exam in 2023, because in 2024 is not going to have much change, but in 2025, then we're going to have some change on the level 3 exam. Okay, so you need to prepare well. Okay, so again, I hope this video was useful. Get in touch with me if you have any questions, and I'll be available to help anyone that's deciding to go and pursue the CFA charter. All right, take care. Bye-bye.